Before we go to points of pride, Board, I would like to request that you allow us to move the auditor's presentation up to just after public comments. Is there any objection among the board to do that? Seeing none, we will bring that forward. Thank you. Points of pride.
Okay. So Antrim Elementary School is listed in the Canopy Project, which is a diverse learning environment, and this happened because of their accomplishments that came out of their Universal Design for Learning project. At Pierce, they had an extremely successful NHDI performance. The multipurpose room was bursting with fully engaged students and a captivated audience. At Francistown, they were excited to welcome the circus the week after April break. So for those who have never experienced that, you should really consider attending. And at PES, in conjunction with the Keene Swamp Bats of the New England College Baseball League, 102 students completed the Reading with Ribby challenge, earning a family game pass to the upcoming game, a t-shirt, an invitation to participate in a parade at Swamp Bat Stadium. And they are also in the middle of their Kindness Challenge fundraiser, and students have performed over 500 documented acts of kindness, and they keep counting. They have been counting since April 7th, and that will continue, and their goal is to perform 1,000 acts of kindness by the end of the week. And those are the points of pride today.
Catherine?
Well, I wanted to share that today I had the distinct pleasure of being in the Senate Commerce Committee at the State House when Temple Elementary 3rd and 4th graders came in and they engaged the senators. They asked wonderful questions. They were extremely well behaved, and it was the absolute highlight of my day, my week, and my month to be at my day job and get to see Conval students out on a field trip. So I just wanted to recognize Temple Elementary School.
Alan?
I have 2 points of pride. I'd like to recognize our superintendent, Kimberly Saunders, for the outstanding and professional job she has done as a witness last week, representing our school district and the other school districts in this important lawsuit dealing with funding adequacy for education. She was prepared, knowledgeable, spoke well and with authority, and as a prior teacher, she knew and remembered the value of doing one's homework. And I was there today, and I personally watched the interaction of Kimberly with other superintendents, the lawyer and other people there. We have an awful lot to be proud of. Thank you, Kimberly. And I do have one more. I would like to recognize Catherine Craig, our student representative, for being one of the recipients of the Scholar Athlete Award presented to a select group of Conval seniors. Congratulations, Catherine.
That's a perfect lead-in to Catherine, our student rep, to share with us.
Glorious. So let's see. Some things from not this Saturday, but the last Saturday. The Glow Dance, which was a fundraiser for the class of 2025, was a massive success. It made over $1,500 for their class fundraising. And also that day, there was a fundraiser for the class of 2024, which was a car wash that made over $500 for their class. Let's see. This past Sunday, there was a baseball game at the Delta Dental Stadium for the boys varsity baseball team, which was a very good opportunity for them. The play production of The Pirate Queen, which was a musical, a spring musical, finished up Saturday, and that the Thursday performance was the first run-through of a sensory-friendly performance for either younger kids or those who have sensory issues. Today was the last day to buy prom tickets for our Enchanted Garden prom, which is going to be May 20th. Everyone was very excited. I saw the final rush for tickets during lunch. currently there's a coin drive for an ice bucket challenge. Whichever, we have these water bottles with faces of administrators, and whichever one has the most coins in it by the end of the week will get an ice bucket poured on their heads. So everyone is very excited for that. And that's a student council fundraiser. AP tests are coming up the week after break. AP Psychology is going to be the first test, and I believe that's on Tuesday. And of course, spring break is also coming up next week. So everyone is also very excited for that. The NHS Earth Day cleanup is Thursday during task. So the National Honor Society has organized something where students from throughout the school are going to be able to do a little cleanup to help out our community. Yesterday, the girls lacrosse won the first game of their season, 17-3. So it was quite a smash. And some things that have just been approved is our senior trip, which is going to be a Red Sox game, May 31st. And the spring fling, which is going to be June 2nd, and that'll be a full school spirit rally. So it'll have mud volleyball, a pep rally, and that's also the date that yearbooks are going to be handed out. And I believe that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
I just want to say that I went to that car wash and I was so impressed with how hard the kids worked and how friendly they were. And my truck looked like it just came out of the showroom.
I'd like to have approval of the manifest. This is a board vote required, so could we please have the presentation of the manifest?
All right, so I certify that manifests totaling $2,655,635.10 have been reviewed by me and found to be proper charges against Kentucky Valley School District for goods and or services received and have been properly processed prior to their submittal to the school board.
I move that we approve the manifest.
Second?
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Next part of our agenda is open for public comment. We give the public 2 minutes to speak to the board. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the board? Please come forward, state your name, and please turn on the mic. There's a little button right in the front. There'll be a little green light comes on.
Okay, it was green. Hi, my name is Janice LaRoche. I teach at PES, and I'm here to present the school board with a thank you card from the PES staff. We just want you to know how much we appreciate all that you do for our staff and the district as a whole. Would you like me to present this too?
You can bring it right up here, Janice. Yeah. Thank you. I am quite sure the board is appreciating your kind thoughts. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, thank you. Sometimes it's priceless. Kimberly, if we could bring forward and have the auditor's report to the board, please.
Absolutely. So in your folder, you should have a copy, a hard copy. This was also sent to you actually midweek last week to make sure you had plenty of time. I recognize that the report is long. And I am pleased to introduce Cheryl Pratt, who is, oh, there she is, and Kyle, I'm gonna Gringas. Jitters. And they are here to make a presentation on the audit and answer questions. So we have a financial audit every year. We are very fortunate to have a long-standing relationship with Lodznik, and they will be coming again sometime in August, right? She shook her head, yes, Kyle, so August.
Well, thank you very much. I have been with, just a little background. I have been with Plotzik and Sanderson since 1991. Started as a staff auditor and became a director in 2005. And Kyle has been with us. He's the manager in charge of your audit since 2009. So he's been with us and a very hard worker. So we want to thank you for having us tonight, and we're going to take you through the audit. I promise we're not going to go through every page. I always tell people if you're having insomnia, just start reading this and you'll put you to sleep. And I wish there was a better way that we could go through this report without having to flip pages all the time, but so bear with me, we're going to be flipping some pages. The first, probably the most important letter in the report is the opinion letter. That can be found on pages 1 through 3 of the report. The opinion letter with auditing standards has changed the format of how the opinion letter appears. In years past, and probably since back in the 90s, you always had to hunt through the opinion letter to find where the actual opinion about your financial statements was. But now, with new standard requirements, it appears now in the first paragraph of the report. And I'm pleased to say that the district received an unmodified opinion on your financial statements and on all opinion units so that your numbers are fairly stated in all material respects. I can't say that for a lot of places we go. A lot of districts may not be fully in compliance with GASB statement standards that we do have to issue adverse opinions, but you received an unmodified or a clean opinion, so that is excellent. That's very good. So you're in compliance with all auditing standards. On page 2 of the opinion letter, just as a point, I also want to note that there was a change in accounting principles in this past audit year. There is a new GASB pronouncement, GASB 87, on leases. So how we always knew leases as either an operating lease or a capital lease is no more. A lease is a lease, and then we have to determine how the lease gets reported. But it now can become a note payable, or it may not be material enough to be reported, but we have to do analysis, and we require the business office staff to look at your leases so we can make a determination whether leases have to, how they will be reported going forward, and whether or not assets will be picked up. In the past, copiers were never picked up as an asset because they were small, they were an operating lease. But with this statement, it changes how we look at assets. And if you have multiple copiers or the value is material, we now pick up those copiers as assets. So that's the big change that transpired during this year. The next several pages in the report is what we call the management's discussion and analysis. This can be found on pages 4 through 9. And what this entails is that management is addressing the numbers in the financial report. We report on in your financial statements, and we have notes to the financial statements. But with GASB Statement 34, which occurred back in 2000, this document is a required document that needs to be put in the financial statements. It's your or management's explanation of the numbers in further detail than what we provide. So it's management's interpretation of the numbers. After that is what we have on pages 10 and 11 are the government-wide financial statements. This again was a GASB pronouncement 34 back in the early 2000s, depending on what year you were probably in a phase 3 district. So it took place in 2001, 2002. They changed the way the financial statements looked. When I first started here, the financial statements had columns for your long-term debt and your capital assets. There was the fixed asset account group and the long-term debt account group next to the other funds of the district. Well, when 34 took place, they decided that they were going to present two financial statements of the district as a whole. So what this includes is all of your funds, which can be found on page 12, which are your governmental funds. It combines all of those funds, and then it also adds to it your capital assets and any long-term debt, as well as any deferred outflows and inflows of revenues or sources coming in similar to a prepaid. So that is the financial statement of the district. Now you will see on page 10 that there is a negative net position, and this is due to your liabilities are quite large. Now, everyone's liabilities are quite large due to GASB 68 and 75, which was when they determined that these liabilities were always out there, but were never required to be reported. That is your pension liability and your other post-employment benefit liability. So what is reported is the district's portion of the total liability captured by New Hampshire Retirement System. So for some districts, such as yours, it's a large number. And in the notes to the financial statements, you will find notes 9 and 10 give you a thorough explanation of what the retirement, the pension liability is, and then note 10 will give you explanation on the other post-employment benefit liability. But on page 28, the summary of the long-term liabilities, you'll see that the pension-related liability represents $33.9 million of that $42 million liability on page 10, and the other post-employment benefit liability represents $5.7 million. So that contributes to the fund balance going in a deficit. Again, most districts we do, they have this deficit net position. And some are very large. One district that I happen to do, that number, total net position, is a negative $132 million because their share of the pension is so much larger. Now going to page 12, Exhibit C1. These are your financial statements of all of your individual funds in the district, and they're broken down by major funds and non-major funds. We do a determination to make sure we properly report each fund. The general fund is always considered a major fund. That's the main operating fund of the district. Then this year, the grants fund and the food service fund were also reported as major. Then you'll see the last column, other governmental funds. These are funds that are part of the district, but we consider not to be material. They're non-major. So they have their own schedules in the back of the report. And on page 49, you'll find that the trust fund, the trust income fund, and the student activities fund are your other governmental funds. Now, student activity funds, years ago, it's about 2 years now, were reported always as a fiduciary fund or as an agency fund. You held the money for the benefit of the students, and it just was a balance sheet item. There was an asset and a liability. Well, then GASB 84 took place a few years ago that now requires student activity funds be reported as a special revenue fund because the principals are the administrators. They're responsible, as you have high-level authority over those funds. The principals are the front line for the student activity funds because they have administrative control over the student activity funds. We have to now report the student activity funds as a special revenue fund. So you will see that's one of the other governmental funds. Again, it did not meet the criteria of a major fund. So if you were to take the total column on page 49 and compare it to that other governmental funds column on page 12, you will see how those numbers have been brought over. But it's more information for you to determine, what are those other governmental funds. Now, for a moment, I am going to fast forward to page 46. I always found these three upcoming schedules, schedules 1, 2, and 3, are very important to you as a board. This is the schedule of estimated versus actual revenues on page 46. This tells you what you budgeted and what you actually took in. And you will see that your revenue, you have a revenue surplus of $790,785 at the end of June of 22. That was substantially due to an unexpected return from New Hampshire Health Trust, the surplus. They returned to the district $471,420 that was brought in as unanticipated revenue. On page 47, this is our schedule of appropriations, expenditures, and encumbrances. Encumbrances are budget that are pulled forward into the next year because you weren't able to expend the money when it was planned for. We make sure that when such money is encumbered, you have proper contracts, purchase orders. This is one thing we do test to make sure that your encumbrances are properly reported. So on this schedule, you'll see that from 2021, $510,876 in encumbrances was brought forward and added basically to your appropriations for the year. You had expenditures of $48.9 million. And then you also have $886,903 in encumbrances that are being carried forward into the present year that you're in now. That left an unexpended appropriation balance at the end of the year of $2,539,638. Now, this is very common in the audits. We do over 90 school district audits during the year. And this is a very common, a lot of people have said, oh my gosh, we underexpend by so much. Well, there's still a lot of factors with COVID. You're still coming out of things with COVID. So a lot of districts did have unexpended balances of appropriations that were this high, if not higher. So you're not alone. Now on page 48, this is kind of a summation, and I've always found this is probably the most important page in the book, is your unexpended or your unassigned fund balance. GASB 54 changed how we look at fund balance. It used to be called unreserved or reserve fund balance, reserve for surplus. GASB 54 recategorized fund balance into 5 different categories. Unreserved became unassigned. So this is what you look at to determine what is going back to the for tax purposes, for setting the tax rate. This is the number that is reported on your DOE 25 as well. So at the beginning of the year, you had unassigned fund balance of $4.4 million. Of that, $4 million, roughly a little over $4 million, was used to reduce the tax rate in 2022 from the prior year. as well as unassigned fund balance that was appropriated for use in the current year of $700,000. That then added to that number, you had your revenue surplus and your unexpended balance of appropriations totaling an overall budget surplus of $3.3 million. Then with GASB 54, because we have those different buckets of fund balance, you've got unassigned fund balance, and then you've got your other categories of fund balance that you'll find back on page 12. Restricted, committed, assigned, unassigned, non-spendable. We have to make adjustments from unassigned to move it from or to these other categories of fund balance. And during the year, we increased the non-spendable fund balance by $7,235, which drew down on the unassigned balance. And there was an increase in committed fund balance of $200,000. Again, classification from unassigned to committed, to leave you with the unassigned fund balance at June 30, 2022 of $2,754,587. And then in between these schedules, starting on page 19 and going all the way through to page 38, these are the notes to the financial statements. So if you want to know what was in the cash or more information on the cash balance, you can go to the note and read more about cash, or again, the pension liability or the OPEB liability. There's information in the notes, so that gives you further explanation of the numbers. Now, I'm going to go back to the back of the report, starting on page 53. Because you receive and expend, and actually I'm going to jump a little further back to page 59 and 60. I'll let you catch up. Starting on page 59, going all the way to page 60, because you receive and expend over $750,000 a year, you are required to have what we call as a single audit. So we have to come in and test all of your federal money, make sure we properly capture it on this schedule of expenditure of federal awards, and then we determine what federal programs we're going to test in the current year. If you don't receive and expend over 750, from page 53 back, it would not be applicable. But because of your size, most every year you've had a single audit for many years. So what these first couple of letters, these are the opinion letters on the single audit, and they concur with the overall financial statement audit. This first opinion relates to the financial reporting, and that was an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. The second opinion letter on page 55 relates to the compliance on each federal program that we tested. And we did have, in this report, we did not have any current year, it gets a little confusing, but there were no current year reporting findings. There was, I'll get into a second, there was a follow-up to a prior year, but not a current year finding. And we do a lot of testing with the programs. And I'll get into that in just a second. On page 57, it gives you a summation of the opinions that you received. For the financial statements, on the top, you received the unmodified opinion. For the federal awards, you did receive an unmodified opinion as well. And we did test the child nutrition cluster this year because you received, and not necessarily expended, but with child nutrition, because of COVID, you received federal money to support the program during the year. And during the year, you received 1.3 million, almost $1.4 million from the federal government for the food service program. So we tested that program several different ways. There's a lot of testing that goes into these single audits. And you were considered a low-risk auditee. And one of the big reasons why you wouldn't be a low-risk auditee would be perhaps you had a material weakness in the past, or you issued your debt, what the report was issued after March 31st. There's a big deadline, like tax day was today. Our tax day in the audit world is March 31st. We have to make sure that these audits are done by March 31st because the report has to be submitted to the federal government, to the federal clearinghouse, as well as what we call the data collection form. And it's a form that you have to submit with all of the information on page 59 and 60, all the numbers and what programs that you have and what we tested and what we found on those programs. So that form has to be received and accepted as well by midnight on March 31st. Your report was dated on March 24th, so it was filed in plenty of time. But it is, it can be tricky trying to get these audits done by the 31st. If they're filed late, you automatically get a ding and they will consider you a high-risk auditee for a period of 2 years until they're filed timely. So that's probably one of the bigger reasons why people are not considered a low-risk auditee, but you are a low-risk auditee. Then in the back of the report, further back on page 61, we did have in the prior year a significant deficiency that remained uncorrected at the end of the year, which is then, and it related to audit adjustments in the grants fund. So we still had, there were still audit adjustments in the grants fund that were not addressed. So we, oh, I'm sorry, it's on page 58. That we did have a finding because the grants fund was not properly reconciled at the end of the year. And that it has, in order to have proper financial reporting, it has to be reconciled timely and properly for reporting. Because a lot of times the grants are, there's no cash account for your grants. They run through an interfund balance from the general fund to the grants fund. So it's important that those numbers are accurate because you don't want to be taking too much money out of the general fund or you don't want expenditures misclassified. So we recommend that that reconciliation be done monthly. And then in the back of the report, in the appendix, is the district's response to that finding called a corrective action plan. And there will be steps taken by the district to properly reconcile and report the grant activity. So that is the audit in a nutshell. So I don't know if anyone has questions, but it's a fast pace. But getting it too much deeper, I think I might lose you. Or I might put you to sleep.
I think you did a great job, but I actually
you.
followed some of it, which is pretty, yes. So, questions from board members? I guess they all got it.
Wonderful.
Couldn't be better. Well, we appreciate it. Do you have anything else you want to share with us, or is that fulfill your report?
That's where that's kind of what I like. That's kind of how I do my presentations is stick right to the report and go through it. And then if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Oh, it was wonderfully done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right.
Thank you.
Seeing board members don't have any questions, then thank you.
Thank you very
Enjoy
much.
the rest of your evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You as well.
We'll move on. Thank you. We'll go on to the consent agenda. Acceptance of the school board minutes, the personnel, and the April 1st enrollments. Could I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? I don't see any abstentions, so.
Great. I do. Could we do it before the next meeting?
We can. Do you want to do it, just before, at the board meeting and then pick up the board meeting
So we'll
after?
have the hearing at 7 and, sorry, guys, the hearing at 7 and then, the board meeting will immediately follow? Does that work for everybody?
Does that work for board members? All right, then that's what we'll do. All right, thank you. Anything else, Kimberly?
Yep, so, school board requests, for those who don't know, if a school board member has not a question really, but, a request for information, there is actually an email called school board requests that you send it to us. I will send it to the appropriate, administrator, to get that information, and then I send it out to everybody. The goal, of course, is that school board members, particularly when there's 13, should, not one school board member should have information that other school board members don't have. The exception to that is there is times the chair has information you don't for a variety of reasons, mostly involving personnel. But at the end of the day, we have some outstanding school board requests, and one of them is a presentation for the SRO. One of them is a presentation about Charlie. If you don't know who Charlie is, see me because he's very important. And I think that those are the only two outstanding board requests at this time. If there are more board requests that I am not remembering, or you've sent a board request recently, if you could please let me know. I would just reiterate that emailing directly to administrators or staff is difficult for both administrators and staff. So asking somebody to do something, for instance, asking Ms. Schmidt if you could have like the last 9 years of expenditures, you absolutely can have that, but please send that request to me first so that I can help appropriately help the employee manage their workload. I know that that might be a huge priority for you, but that may not be the priority to run the district at the time. So appreciate that. And next on the list, we just had the auditor's presentations. So it is always my pleasure to do this at this time of the year. I am going to begin by drawing your attention to the annual contract employees, and my nominees have been sent to you and are in your packets. So if you could please accept those nominations for teaching positions.
Do you want us to do it by category or all
Yes,
at once?
please.
All right. If board members have any questions, we'd really have to go into executive session if it's specifically about staff. No? Janine, a question?
No, I don't.
Okay. Certainly, yep, sure, Bill.
Do you want me to do that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
Kimberly. Yep,
Do you want me to do it?
no, you can do it.
Okay, so in New Hampshire, based on RSA, teachers do not achieve what's called continuing contract until after they have completed 5 years until that they're on an annual to annual contract. What that means is that if you are going to, that they don't have rights of redress if during the first 5 years we do not renew their contract or we don't recommend them for renewal. After year 5, they have some significant steps and means of redress for non-renewal. Oh, yes. So SSPs are student service providers. So OTs, PTs, school psychologists all fall into the SSP category.
Other questions from board members? Not seeing any. Could I have a motion to approve the annual to annual contract as presented and listed?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Annual to continuing. That's people who have finished 5 years and are going on continuing contract.
So moved.
Second? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Oppose? Nay? Abstentions? Seeing none, 100%. Continuing to continuing contract. All, can I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Oppose? Nay? Abstentions? Seeing none, all approved. SSPs. Could I have a motion to accept the SSPs as listed?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? No? Abstentions? Seeing none, 100%. Okay, great. Reports. Strategic Organizational Planning Committee meeting. Alan.
Thank you. Couple of items. We elected the committee chair, which is me. That was unanimous, and I thank everybody. We had a welcome and briefing orientation of our new committee member, Dan Harper, and that went well. We went over what this whole project is about, the RFIs, the RFPs, the process we're going to be following, and Dan had some really good input, and I want to thank him very much. We also have a withdrawal of one of the vendors. We had 3 vendors that we had looked at for responding to the RFP, and one of them decided for his own reasons not to continue. So we still have 2 vendors for the RFP, and the RFPs will be back tomorrow. That's when they do back to us, the 2 RFPs. We discussed a conference call with the vendors. We had a conference call about a week or so ago, and there was really no material changes or discrepancies within the RFP. There were just clarification type questions about the budget, time remote, or time being here. There were really no issues. It was a very, very positive conference call from the vendors. Our next steps, after the receipt of the returned RFPs, which will be tomorrow again, is we will be individually reading the RFPs, and we'll collectively discuss them next Thursday, the 27th, at the SOC meeting, which will take place at 5:30. At that time, we will sit down also and set what evaluation criteria we need, because we must have written evaluation criteria as we review the RFPs, and also set the timelines for the next meeting to go over and formalize our reviews. That's all we did in the meeting. And it was very good, very positive, and I thank everybody.
And so Alan, you would know this, but we received one response today. It's here.
It's always nice as the chair not to know this stuff.
Well, you wouldn't have known because I just saw it. Won't tell you next time. There you go. Say, keep you in the dark. Next on the agenda is yes,
Now, this is appropriate time to make a comment.
certainly.
First of all, I'd like to introduce myself to the board members I haven't met. I'm Jim Frederickson from Sharon. I'm chairman of Budget Property. On the list of meetings, we don't keep track of a meeting that's going to be held monthly. And there's one tomorrow if you're interested in attending. We have a building committee set up, which includes staff members, 3 of us in the board, at least 1 member for the public. I don't think we have another addition since then. And the architect and engineer we hired to look at modernization, high school and middle school. Meetings 3rd Wednesday of every month here, 1 o'clock. You guys are invited to attend if you would like to. Okay.
Thank you, Jim. Sure, Alan, go ahead.
Brenda, can you make sure that the SOC meeting is posted? It is? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, under new business, we have technology purchases that are being recommended. We're going to have to vote on these one at a time. If you go to page 11, you'll see the first item being recommended. Could I have a motion to approve this item as listed? It's moved. Could I have a second?
Second.
Move and seconded to approve the B&H. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Kimberly. The B&H purchase for $112,806.90. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Great. Next person purchases EDI for $112,200. Could I have a motion to approve this?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none, it passes. Jim? Sure, thank you.
Oh, and just to include dollar amounts so the public, because in case they don't have this in front of them.
Right.
Even though it's in the agenda,
I read the dollar amount, I thought, if I didn't. But anyway,
not on the second.
okay, so we'll go to the next one. GCI ViewSonic, $137,200. Could I have a motion to,
So moved.
can I have a second? Could I have a second, please? Any discussion? Yes, Catherine.
I was wondering what we were doing with the surplus or the disposal of the interactive displays, since this is replacing 56 interactive displays. What would happen to the ones being replaced?
Mark, go ahead. So Mark is here to answer any of your questions related to the technology.
The majority of these are going to be replacing older smart boards and projectors that are in the in the classrooms currently. We haven't really formally had a replacement cycle of these before, so the ones that we're looking to replace here range from 8 to more than 10 years old. So we will look to see what can still be used. A lot of the smart boards are starting to kind of like deteriorate in use. Like they have like a membrane that you have to be able to use in order for them to function. So those don't last as well over time, but the projectors might still be usable. It's just a matter of determining if we still have a use for them or if they'll be surplus.
I just wanted to, may I follow up?
Please.
Just to know that with our surplus policy, we did redo that recently, so we just wanted to make sure that that equipment, if possible, could be used, not necessarily within the district, but somewhere in the state or the region, because believe it or not, there are public schools without even smart boards today, or Chromebooks, so just wanted to follow up with that. But one more follow-up.
Please.
I always comment on your sheets and your purchase recommendations and how much I appreciate them, and I wish they were used on everything that we see before us. So I always thank you for the time and effort that you put in to presenting this information in this format that's clear and concise. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely.
Again, we're looking at approving the purchase of ViewSonic for $137,200. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none. Go on to the next item. ISC, $50,605.01. Could I have a motion to approve this expenditure? Could I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Item WCA, $19,750. Could I have a motion to approve this? A second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 90%. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder, Jim and Catherine. Appreciate it. A little help from my friends. Kimberly, general assurances.
Okay, so annually, over the last couple of years, the the Department of Education has said that we have to bring the general assurances, to the board. So I can answer questions about that in a little while, but, these were sent out a little early for you guys to review. Basically, this is the way we must participate in the federal programs in order to receive the money. We have to basically assure that we'll work within those guidelines. I am also required, and this is just cracks me up, I am required to tell you how much we are going to get. And except that they have not shared with us yet even estimates of our federal funds. But so I will tell you that we are pretty confident that we will be receiving or are entitled to $2.1 million in federal grants for next year. And that is still an approximate number because I don't know the whole number because they haven't told us yet. So that needs to be recorded in the minutes, and I do so solemnly swear on my certification that we will follow the assurances because that's the expectation.
You've had some practice swearing in too.
That's true. This week has been interesting. Or was that last week? I don't even know.
Expenditures? Yes, question.
We're estimating it's going to be about the same.
Expenditure and encumbrance reports, Lori?
Okay, so just for the newer members, we bring this report to the board monthly. And it reflects the expenditures that we have made and the encumbrances, funds that we've set aside and identified for spending through the year. We try to begin the beginning of the year by encumbering all of our contracts and our known expenses and payroll and benefits, and those are adjusted as we go throughout the year. What we don't fully encumbrance at the beginning of the year are purchasing of supplies and repair and maintenance items. Those are probably two most common things that we don't fully encumber. We encumber those as we go. So we're required to, I think our bylaws require that we bring this to you at least quarterly, if not monthly. So we do that, and it's important that we vote and that you accept the expense report as well as the encumbrances, because all encumbrances and budget transfers must be approved also by the board.
Could I have a motion to accept the expenditures and encumbrance report as presented? Do I have a second? It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, comments? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Jim?
You heard the audit report about encumbrances from one year to the other. By June 30th this year, we as a board have to meet and vote on how much of this funds we move into next year. So that's a specific vote coming up. The other thing we're gonna need to talk about on June 30th is she talked at length about the unfunded balance. Not the unfunded balance, I said that wrong. The fund balance at the end of the year. And we have several things we need to do on June 30th. If there's money left over, and this 2.9 million you see in here would suggest there's not gonna be money not spent this year. First priority is $1 million of that goes to the trust funds, which voters just approved. The second priority is we have a decision to make for the first time this year on how much we retain as a school board. This fiscal year is the first time we're ever gonna be able to retain that based on a warrant article that was passed a couple of years ago. And finally, what's left over after those two are subtracted from the fund balance, we'll have the amount that will be returned to the taxpayers. So Dick and I talked a couple days ago about the new members, if you like a budget 101 session and some kind of get you up to speed. I know for a fact that you didn't understand everything in that audit report because I didn't, so I'll fess up to it. Catherine probably did, and Lori probably did, but I think outside of the two of them, the rest of us are probably all testified. So I make that offer if you want to just set something up as a group. I'm more than willing to sit down and run through stuff with you so that when you do have the vote on June 30th, you'll know what you're doing, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. MS 22, I believe that it passed around and you all signed it, so thank you. We need to get that done. Catherine?
So can we explain to the new board members what that is?
Sure.
So they know it, they just put their signature.
Kimberly?
So the MS-22 is basically the report on the appropriation that was just voted. So it goes to DRA and it starts the process of the tax rate setting. That's
Jim?
like the 100,000 foot view.
Yeah, and this year, the MS-22 should match, I didn't look at the numbers, should match exactly what warrant article 1, because we didn't have any other appropriation warrant articles. If we had another one for like teacher's contract or something like that, then this MS-22 would take those numbers and combine them, okay? We don't, but I think there should be direct one-to-one comparison, warrant article 1 to this report, is that correct?
Lori?
So actually, it would also include
include
the,
trust funds.
the trust fund warrant
Sorry,
articles. So there'd be an additional million to that.
Thank you, Lori. High school.
So the high school is offering up some changes to its handbook because handbooks do have the authority of policy. These addendums are in front of you for your consideration and vote. And Jordan is here to talk a little bit about the importance of these particular changes. Thanks so much, Heather and Jordan.
Yes, so I just want to introduce Jordan Sweet and thank his daughter Rick for driving him here tonight. Doug Sutherland and both of our assistant principals at the high school, Eric Tebow and Rick Simino, who are also here supporting Jordan this evening. Before I turn it over to him, I just want to give Jordan a lot of credit because he came to administration and shared some of his experiences in the district even prior to high school. And because Jordan sharing his voice and being brave to have some conversations that may not have been comfortable, we've been able to start making some changes to be better. And so this is one of those changes. So I'd like to give Jordan an opportunity to share his voice for a minute. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm Jordan. I've been in this district for my whole life. Went to GES, SMS, and now I'm in Conval High School. My main thing with all of this, there's a lot of racial injustice that I noticed, like mainly in middle school and now even in high school, where things will happen in classrooms, halls, lunchrooms, even gyms during assemblies in some cases. And I feel like there's a lack of attention when it comes to like how those things should be handled, and even just a lack of attention when those things are said or done, whether it's actions verbally or anything. So this handbook change is really like a way of saying, oh, we need to put more attention on this. It has stuff about, you know, consequences for certain actions, things like, you know, if it's verbal or physical or anything like that. So I feel like we really would appreciate it if you were to accept this change, because it would help the Conval community, and not even just the high school, like middle schools, the elementary schools even. It would help them become more of a safer, more including, and more just overall a better school system, I feel. Yeah.
And with the support of the board, if this were to pass, Jordan has agreed to be on a student group that we'd like to form to talk about how the rollout of this would be. We've talked that it wouldn't just be appropriate to send an email, that there's been a change to the handbook. So getting students involved and how to communicate this to our community and really tying it into our mission statement and a Conval Cougar Cares, like this is who we are and this is who we're not. So and Jordan's also agreed to be on that, so.
Thank you, Jordan. You're a brave young man, future politician sitting here in front of us right now, speaking for the people. That's wonderful. So what we'll do is, Jim, questions?
Yes, first of all, thank you. And I'm wholeheartedly in support of everything you've done, and I commend you for bringing this forward. I do have what might seem like a dumbass question. I understand what all these this racial and gender identity and what is disability and religious harassment. Can you tell me what relational harassment, relational orientation harassment is? I have no clue. But I'd rather not guess.
For the relational orientation, it's because it could be a relationship, so it might not just be gender related. It could be relational. So I'm trying to. Like, am I doing the best job of that?
So, give me an example. I guess that was what it was, but I had no idea
Yeah.
this happened.
Rick really helped with this language here. So.
Sure, I felt as a I felt as though that the term sexual, what is it? Thank you. Sexual orientation was not appropriate. I felt as though a relationship could cover many different things, and that was just not. I just didn't feel it was appropriate to use that terminology. That somebody's relationship, their orientation in their relationship, it's a relationship that matters. It's the sexual piece that kind of detracts from the message. So we chose to use that relationship orientation instead.
I understand. I get it completely. Explain. Thank you.
Janine?
Jordan, you mentioned middle school as well. Up at the top, it says the policy of Conval High School. So I'm wondering whether you're going to talk to the middle schools about also adopting this policy.
Yeah. So this is just for the high school right now, but our goal with this was if the handbook is changed in the high schools, it will give more of like a influence for the middle schools. You know, like if the high school seems to make changes to make their school a better place, then the middle schools might follow through with that as well. So that was where I was trying to go with that. Yeah.
Dan and Catherine?
Jordan, I think you did a fantastic job. Thank you for coming forward. One question, should nationality be added to the list of discriminatory topics?
I mean, I'd say so. I feel like that does fall in line with everything in this handbook change. And that would definitely be a good thing to focus on as well. So I'd say so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Catherine?
Thank you for coming forward and bringing this to us. I really appreciate that. This question is more for, that's why I'm not going to direct it at you. It's more for the superintendent. Was there anything in the handbook currently around this? Is this replacing something? Is this in addition to?
This is in addition to, so when you think about what, well, we do in the handbook have obviously policy AC, which is our non-discrimination. This actually sets out for students an understanding of what the behaviors are that will no longer be accepted in any way, as well as what the potential consequences are. And those consequences, as we want all our consequences to be, are somewhat stepped in. So, a first occurrence will be X, but occurrences after that would be Y. So that's the second page.
Follow-up.
Catherine?
Is this replacing anything though? Is this taking the place of any current
No,
language?
no.
Okay, so it's just in addition to, and on the outline or how we would move through the intervention and response, is this same language used in other parts of the handbook for other types of behaviors and activities?
Yes, so this is, sorry, do you want to cover that? Go ahead.
Just yes. The behavior description and different response by categories is very consistent. So we have that for everything. And in addition, for your first question, when we reviewed the handbook, we had inappropriate language, which was very vague, and we didn't feel captured some of what we needed to capture.
Mike?
Just as a,
Sorry. Some of our level 1 responses include calling home, having meetings, conferences. So some of the lower tiered that aren't suspension necessarily. And I think it's also important to note on the bottom, it kind of goes over to at least the third page is the way I have it. So I want to make sure that you can see it depending on how it's in your packet. We're also really want to look at restorative practices and how do we restore something that's happened. So we've added that restorative practices may be offered to the student and family. Of course, in able to do that, both parties need to be willing to do that. And sometimes that's not always possible, especially right away. But we've talked a little bit about how that would really be impactful and how we can work on that.
Other questions? So Jordan, you responded to Mr. Harper's question about putting nationality in it. Do you want to add that wording to this handbook proposal? Is that a motion you'd like to bring forward also?
I feel like it'd be good to do that, yeah. I feel like that, like I said, it really goes hand in hand with this handbook change, so I feel like that's something I'd want to do.
So administration? So board members, the schools develop their handbooks each year, and those handbooks are brought to the board for our approval. So because this is an addition to their present handbook, which we've already approved, we would have to approve this addition. So I guess I'm looking from council, from the superintendent. Can we bring this motion forward tonight and vote on it?
Yep.
Great. Questions around that? Catherine?
No, I was going to move that we accept this addition to the handbook as created and hope that it makes a positive impact to the culture and climate at the high school as a result.
Do I have a second? And I'm assuming that we put in the additional wording. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? And again, what a great future for you, young man. I'll be looking for your name when I go to vote soon. You're never too young. Thank you again. Thank you, Conval. Thank you very much. Thank you again. Exchange students, superintendent.
Okay. So I am just really clear, not asking you to make a decision today, but I wanted to start the conversation about exchange students. So in accordance with policy JFAB, we from time to time take exchange students from other countries who come into our district. We often will waive tuition for those students, not necessarily always. I am, as the superintendent, wanting you to consider that we work with one agency for a whole variety of reasons. One, because we are familiar with that agency. We spend lots of time with this agency, as does our students, and that is the Rotary. No longer the Peterborough Rotary, it's the Greater Monadnock Rotary. And because of the way they both bring students into the country and the way that they make sure that that is going to be a match for both the families as well as the student. So I would like to introduce Mr. Bob McDonald, who's going to spend 2 minutes talking a little bit about the program with the Greater Monadnock Rotary and to answer any questions you may have, so that next meeting, this will be under old business, unless you tell me to go away.
So, very briefly, I did prepare, if anybody wanted it, enough copies of a one-page summary of what might be a little different about Rotary's exchange program and others you might be more or have had some experience. 5 that way. Anyway, there are enough. So very briefly, Kimberly did mention that I think the biggest distinction of the Rotary Exchange program is its scope and its level of support, as well as its volunteer nature rather than being for profit. And so nobody's building any yachts or buying any yachts because they are involved with the Rotary program, but there are 1.3 million Rotarians around the world gathered in groups of an average of about 30 in a Rotary club. So there's 33,000 or 34,000 Rotary clubs. And every Rotary Exchange involves a student that was vetted and selected by one Rotary Club and then hosted by another Rotary Club in another country. So we are in this community. It was Peterborough Rotary Club for 18 years. We recombined with a sister club we'd launched in Dublin as the Grand Monadnock Rotary Club as of a year and a half ago. But we've had I've been involved since 1994 with, I believe, having at least one inbound student to Conval, I think every year, 2 for most of those years. In the same time, we have sent out a comparable number of Conval students to other parts of the world, trying to make all of them ambassadors, with our goal being world peace and global understanding rather than getting yachts. And as an unfortunate byproduct, the kids have a wonderful time, and we have an opportunity to let our kids at Conval meet some really outstanding representatives of the rest of the world and hear about life in another part of the world from their own classmates who return from an exchange. We have a network. We use several host families, which gives a broader experience for each of the students. They have 2 or 3 different families. Sounded funny to me when I first met it, but it keeps it a broader picture for everybody, and we get to spread the wealth more. My 2 minutes are up. I will take questions after, and my number is in the back of that handout, and there's some web links, but I think I put it on one page of why I think this is the outstanding program, and if you only can choose one, I think we're the right one.
Questions from board members? We'll definitely have this on the agenda for voting next time, and there's no question, it's an outstanding program. Yes, very familiar.
I've got a few here left, so somebody didn't take it, but I've got a couple left. So,
Thank you.
thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you, Bob.
Yep.
No,
We
my
will
butt.
bring it forward to the next one for a vote.
Hit my butt.
And this comes with the I recommend that you do this.
We have policies for first read. We have first read on JJA, student activities and organizations. Board members, this means you're going to read this policy over. If you've got questions, send them to policy. Catherine, questions? Okay. Krista, I'm sorry. Send it to Krista or Kimberly or both. First read on IC school year and school year calendar, and a first read on EBCD, emergency closing, emergency school, and district closings. So any comments, pass on to Krista Kimberly, and that's for your reading for the next board meeting. Next part of our agenda is public comments. Do we have anybody in the audience that would like to speak to the board? Hi, Doug. We can speak to you.
You missed us so much. You came back. Like,
So we do have a non-public that we need to go in. So non-public session under RSA 91-A:3, 2. Could I have a motion to go into non-public under that RSA? It's good. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, remember, board members, you have to recite your name. Dick? We're now in non-public. Thank you all.